lines, what's the absolute value of y when there is no x? Horizontal lines. Okay, do you remember? Now we have shading that has to occur. Do you remember when we did these on number lines? We said the absolute value is the physical distance, and I want your physical distance to be less than 3 feet, which means stay close to me. Do y'all remember? So we graphed a line between our 2 points. Well, if these are 2 lines that are the walls, and it's less than, and we want to stay inside, we shade between those 2 lines. Here, where y is greater than 2, remember we said the distance, your physical distance from me, stay away. We shaded out in opposite directions, right? Because it's greater than. All right, so what we're going to have here, should have wrote it here. Sorry about that. Is we have our 2 lines and we need to set it up. Okay? Remember, Patrick Lawcos, pick up your head. When we set these things up from a long time ago, we first set this first one up exactly the same. And the next one we set up, but we changed the inequality and we changed the sign, right? All right, well, let's graph those 2 things. X equals 3 is a vertical line going through 3. If I want to shade the region that is less than that line, do I shade to the left or the right of it? To the left. Not shading yet, though. I'm just indicating. This says x is greater than or equal to -3. Well, x equals -3 is a vertical line at -3. And if my shading is greater than, then am I going to be indicating this section to the right or the left? The right. But I can't shade yet because I still have that blue thing over there that I have to take into account. Because all of these conditions need to be met. Well, let's set it up like we did in the old days. First, I set it up exactly the same. Y is greater than 2. Next time, what do I do? Y is less than -2. When I graph these 2 lines, they're both broken. They're not solid. And they're both horizontal. The first one is found at y is +2. The second one at y is -2. Now let's focus on this top line right here. Greater than. Is the shading above or below? Now let's focus on this one. Less than. Below. All right, now there are more than 4 regions formed with those 2 lines. This is your y-axis. Don't get your y-axis confused. Okay, you got to imagine it's not there. Are there arrows pointing toward each other here? What about here? Just one. What about here? Okay, well, let's shade that in. What about here?
Yeah, 1.
It's got to be both. Here? Here? No, there's only one. The black arrows. It's got to be black and blue.
Yes.
Yes.
And then no.
And that's it. Okay? That's it. I drew some extra lines for the people at home to see what I was talking about.
Are we going to have one that hard?
Possibly. That's not hard.
It's just going to be visible
Okay? But I don't want you to get confused between this. See, this is a V because there's a Y and an X involved. This is an absolute value equation or function. And when there's only an X or only a Y, that's 2 lines. Either 2 verticals or 2 horizontals with areas shaded, either out or in. All right, and then let's look at another example. Well, let me do this because number 21 might give you problems, but it's based off this same thing. I just want to give you a little look into it. How would you come up with your equation?
You have to get the x by
All right. Well, I'm not going to solve it for you. I'm going to do one like it. First thing you got to do is in the setup process. Remember with solving these things, we said isolate your absolute value brackets, then set up two new inequalities. One of them just like it is, and the second one, you flip the inequality and you change the sign. All right, well now to get down to what your lines are, you've got to isolate y. So you subtract 5 here, and you subtract 5 here. And so here are your two lines, okay? So it's all set up the same way. This is a solid line at positive 5 with the shading above. That is a solid line at negative 15 with the shading below. If this was our only condition, could we shade anything? There is no region where both conditions are being satisfied at the same time. So what would you say? No solution. If you get to a spot where you cannot shade a region where all things aren't pointing towards it, it's no solution. Yes?